Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something that affects us all, whether we realize it or not. The art of thinking clearly. In a world where we're bombarded with information and distractions at every turn, being able to think straight is more important than ever. But here's the thing. Our brains are wired with these little quirks called cognitive biases that can trip us up in the most unexpected ways. Let me tell you a story. There was this business leader, let's call him John. John was at the top of his game, running a successful tech company. One day, he had to decide whether to invest in a new project. Now, John had a team of experts telling him it was a risky move, but he just couldn't shake the feeling that it was a surefire win. He was so convinced that he ignored all the red flags and went ahead with the investment. Long story short, the project flopped, and the company lost a ton of money. What happened? John fell victim to something called confirmation bias. He only saw the information that supported his belief and ignored everything else. But it's not just big business decisions where clear thinking matters. Think about your everyday life. Have you ever made a choice that seemed perfect at the time, only to realize later that you were just seeing what you wanted to see? Maybe you bought a new gadget because the ads made it look amazing, only to find out it was a dud. Or maybe you took a job that seemed perfect on paper, but turned out to be a nightmare. These are all examples of cognitive biases in action. Now, let's take a step back and look at a famous example. Remember the Titanic? The unsinkable ship that, sank. One of the reasons it went down was overconfidence. The people in charge were so sure that the Titanic was invincible that they didn't even have enough lifeboats. They thought they were invulnerable, and that overconfidence cost a lot of lives. But here's the good news. We can learn to recognize these biases and avoid them. That's where Rolf Dobelli's book, The Art of Thinking Clearly, comes in. Dobelli breaks down these cognitive biases and shows us how to navigate them. He gives us a roadmap to make better decisions, whether we're running a company or just trying to pick the right movie to watch. I have a personal story that really drove this home for me. A few years ago, my friend Sarah was looking to buy a new car. She had her heart set on this one model, and she was ready to sign the papers. But then, she remembered something she read about the availability heuristic. This is when we make decisions based on the information that's most readily available to us, even if it's not the most accurate. Sarah realized that she was only considering the car because she saw it everywhere, not because it was the best choice. She took a step back, did some more research, and ended up finding a much better car at a better price. She avoided a costly mistake by recognizing that bias. So why does all of this matter? Well, in today's fast-paced world, we're making more decisions than ever before. Whether it's choosing what to eat for breakfast or deciding on a major career move, the quality of our decisions can have a huge impact on our lives. By understanding these cognitive biases, we can make more informed, rational choices. But here's the thing. It's not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about making the most of our opportunities. When we think clearly, we can spot the good deals, the great opportunities, and the right paths to take. We can avoid the pitfalls and make the most of our lives. So, are you ready to dive deeper into the world of clear thinking? Stick around because we're going to explore more examples, share some tips, and maybe even have a few laughs along the way. And if you have your own stories or experiences with cognitive biases, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and let's get started. Section 1. Unveiling cognitive biases. Welcome to the first section of our deep dive into the world of cognitive biases. As explored by Rolf Dobelli in his insightful book, cognitive biases are like invisible forces that shape our decisions, often leading us astray without us even realizing it. Today, we'll uncover three major biases: the confirmation bias, the sunk cost fallacy, and the availability heuristic. We'll explore how these biases can lead to flawed decision-making, and we'll share real-world examples and practical tips to help you recognize and mitigate their effects. Let's start with the confirmation bias. This bias is like a mental filter that makes us seek out information that supports our existing beliefs while ignoring or dismissing information that contradicts them. It's a bit like wearing tinted glasses that only let in the colors you already like. For example, if you believe that a particular political candidate is the best choice, you might only read news articles that praise them and ignore any Critical coverage. This can lead to a skewed perception of reality, making it difficult to make well-rounded decisions. One of the most striking examples of the confirmation bias in action is the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. During this period, investors were so convinced that the internet would revolutionize everything that they poured money into any and every tech startup, regardless of the business model or financial viability. They ignored warning signs and continued to invest, driven by the belief that the tech sector was infallible. When the bubble burst in 2000, many investors lost a significant amount of money, a stark reminder of the dangers of confirmation bias. Now, let's move on to the sunk cost fallacy. This bias is the tendency to continue an endeavor once an investment in money, effort, or time has been made, even if it's no longer rational to do so. It's like being stuck on a sinking ship because you've already paid for the ticket. The sunk cost fallacy can be particularly damaging in business and personal life, leading to wasted resources and missed opportunities. A compelling story that illustrates the sunk cost fallacy is that of a tech startup called InnovateX. InnovateX was founded with a revolutionary idea for a new app that would change the way people communicate. The founders invested a significant amount of time and money into developing the app, but as they got closer to launch, they realized that the market was already saturated with similar products. Despite this, they decided to push forward, thinking that all the effort they had already put in would somehow pay off. Unfortunately, the app failed to gain traction, and the company eventually folded, leaving the founders with nothing to show for their investment. This story is a cautionary tale about the importance of recognizing when to cut your losses. Sometimes, the best decision is to walk away, even if it means admitting that a previous investment was a mistake. It's a hard lesson to learn, but it can save you from further losses and open up new opportunities. Next, we have the availability heuristic. This bias occurs when we make decisions based on the information that is most readily available to us, rather than a comprehensive analysis of all relevant data. It's like making a judgment based on the first thing that pops into your head, rather than taking the time to gather and consider all the facts. The availability heuristic can lead to skewed perceptions and poor decision-making, especially in situations where the available information is limited or biased. A personal experience that highlights the availability heuristic is when I decided to buy a new car. I had always heard from friends and family that a particular brand was the best, so I went into the dealership with the intention of buying that brand. However, I didn't do any research or compare it to other options. When I got the car, I realized that it had several issues that I could have avoided if I had taken the time to gather more information. This experience taught me the importance of not relying solely on the most readily available information and doing thorough research before making a significant purchase. The impact of the availability heuristic on consumer behavior is also significant. For example, when a new product is heavily advertised, it becomes more available in our minds, making us more likely to buy it. This is why companies invest so much in marketing and advertising, because they know that the more we see a product, the more likely we are to perceive it as a good choice, even if there are better options available. To mitigate the effects of the availability heuristic, it's essential to take a step back and consider a broader range of information. This might mean doing more research, seeking out diverse perspectives, and not making hasty decisions based on the first thing that comes to mind. In conclusion, cognitive biases like the confirmation bias, the sunk cost fallacy, and the availability heuristic can significantly impact our decision-making. By understanding these biases and their effects, we can take steps to recognize and mitigate them, leading to better, more informed choices. Whether you're making a personal decision or a business one, being aware of these biases can help you avoid common pitfalls and achieve better outcomes. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of cognitive biases. In the next section, we'll explore more biases and delve deeper into how they affect our daily lives. Stay tuned. Section 2. The Power of Rational Thinking. Welcome back, everyone. In this section, we're diving deep into the principles of rational thinking, as outlined in The Art of Thinking Clearly. We'll explore how to cultivate a rational mindset, the importance of evidence-based decision-making, and the role of critical thinking in both our personal and professional lives. By the end of this section, you'll have practical strategies to improve your rational thinking and avoid common pitfalls. Let's start with the foundation, cultivating a rational mindset. A rational mindset is one that is open to new ideas, skeptical of unproven claims, and grounded in evidence. It's about being willing to question your assumptions and being open to changing your mind when presented with new information. This might sound simple, but it's actually quite challenging. Our brains are wired to seek confirmation of what we already believe, a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. To overcome this, we need to actively seek out information that challenges our beliefs and be willing to admit when we're wrong. One of the best ways to cultivate a rational mindset is to engage in regular self-reflection. Take some time each day to think about your decisions and the reasoning behind them. Ask yourself questions like, what evidence do I have to support this belief? And, are there any alternative explanations I haven't considered? This practice of self-reflection helps you become more aware of your thought processes and more adept at identifying and correcting biases. Now, let's talk about evidence-based decision-making. In a world where information is abundant but not always reliable, the ability to make decisions based on solid evidence is more important than ever. Evidence-based decision-making involves gathering and analyzing data to inform your choices. This approach is used in many fields, from medicine to business, and it can be applied to almost any aspect of life. A great example of evidence-based decision-making in action is the scientific method. The scientific method is a systematic process for experimentation and inquiry that has been used for centuries to advance our understanding of the world. It involves making observations, forming hypotheses, conducting experiments, and analyzing the results. This method is not just for scientists, it can be applied to everyday life as well. For instance, if you're trying to decide whether a new diet will help you lose weight, you can use the scientific method by tracking your food intake, monitoring your weight, and comparing the results to your previous diet. This way, you're making an informed decision based on evidence rather than just following a trend. To illustrate the power of evidence-based decision-making, let me share a story about a scientist who made a groundbreaking discovery through rational thinking. In the early 20th century, a young physicist named Albert Einstein was working as a patent clerk in Switzerland. Despite his mundane job, Einstein spent his free time thinking deeply about the nature of space and time. He was particularly interested in the inconsistencies between Newtonian physics and the behavior of light. Through rigorous thought experiments and mathematical calculations, Einstein developed the theory of special relativity, which fundamentally changed our understanding of the universe. Einstein's success was not just a matter of genius. It was also a result of his commitment to evidence-based thinking. He didn't just accept the prevailing theories of his time. He questioned them and sought out evidence to support his ideas. This story highlights the importance of being open to new ideas and the power of using evidence to guide your decisions. Moving on to critical thinking skills. These are the mental tools that allow us to analyze information, evaluate arguments, and make sound judgments. Critical thinking involves more than just being smart. It's about being able to think clearly and logically. This skill is essential in both personal and professional life. In personal life, critical thinking can help you make better decisions about your health, finances, and relationships. In professional life, it can help you solve complex problems, innovate, and make strategic decisions. To give you a practical example of how critical thinking can be applied, let's consider financial planning. When it comes to managing your money, it's easy to fall into the trap of making impulsive decisions based on emotions or marketing hype. However, by applying critical thinking, you can make more informed financial decisions. For instance, before investing in a new stock, you can research the company's financial health, market trends, and the opinions of financial experts. By gathering and analyzing this information, you can make a more rational decision about whether the investment is a good fit for your portfolio. To further illustrate the importance of critical thinking, let me share a personal anecdote about a friend of mine who used critical thinking to solve a complex problem. My friend, let's call her Sarah, was a project manager at a tech company. One day, she was tasked with leading a project that was behind schedule and over budget. The team was demoralized, and the client was threatening to cancel the contract. Sarah knew she had to act fast, but she also knew that making hasty decisions could make the situation worse. Instead of panicking, Sarah took a step back and applied her critical thinking skills. She started by gathering data on the project's progress, identifying the key issues, and analyzing the root causes of the delays and cost overruns. She then held a series of meetings with the team to discuss the problems and brainstorm solutions. By fostering an open and collaborative environment, Sarah was able to get everyone on the same page and come up with a realistic plan to get the project back on track. Sarah's approach paid off. The team rallied, the project was completed on time and within budget, and the client was satisfied. This experience taught Sarah the value of critical thinking in problem solving. By taking a step back, gathering data, and analyzing the situation, she was able to make informed decisions that led to a successful outcome. In conclusion, the power of rational thinking lies in its ability to help us make better decisions, solve complex problems, and navigate the challenges of life. By cultivating a rational mindset, practicing evidence-based decision-making, and developing critical thinking skills, we can improve our personal and professional lives. Remember, rational thinking is not just about being smart. It's about being willing to question, to learn, and to grow. So, the next time you're faced with a difficult decision or a complex problem, take a deep breath, gather your evidence, and think it through. You might be surprised by the clarity and confidence that rational thinking can bring. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of rational thinking. Stay tuned for the next section, where we'll explore more strategies for improving your cognitive skills and making better decisions. Section 3. Overcoming mental traps in the journey of making sound decisions. One of the most significant challenges we face is the presence of mental traps. These are cognitive biases that can subtly and sometimes dramatically derail our clear thinking. Today, we're going to delve into 3 of the most common mental traps: the illusion of control, the gambler's fallacy, and the narrative fallacy. We'll explore how these traps work, their psychological underpinnings, and, most importantly, how to avoid them. To make these concepts come alive, we'll use compelling stories and real-world examples to highlight their impact. Let's start with the illusion of control. This is a fascinating phenomenon, where people believe they have more influence over outcomes than they actually do. It's like thinking you can control the weather by dancing, or that you can make a coin land on heads by wishing really hard. The illusion of control is particularly prevalent in situations where the outcome is uncertain, and we feel a strong desire to influence the result. Imagine you're at a slot machine in a casino. You pull the lever and the reels spin. You might find yourself thinking, if I pull the lever just right, I can make it land on the jackpot. But the truth is, the outcome is determined by a random number generator, and your physical actions have no bearing on the result. Yet, the illusion of control can make you feel like you have a say in the outcome, which can lead to continued gambling and potentially significant financial losses. This trap isn't limited to casinos. It's also prevalent in the stock market. Many investors believe they can predict market movements and make precise, profitable trades. They might spend hours analyzing charts, news, and trends, convinced that their insights will give them an edge. However, the stock market is influenced by a myriad of factors, many of which are beyond any individual's control. The illusion of control can lead investors to overestimate their abilities and take on more risk than they should. To avoid the illusion of control, it's crucial to recognize the limits of your influence. Accept that some outcomes are genuinely random or influenced by factors beyond your control. Instead of trying to control the uncontrollable, focus on what you can control, such as your own actions and decisions. For example, in the stock market, instead of trying to time the market, focus on building a diversified portfolio and sticking to a long-term investment strategy. Next, let's talk about the gambler's fallacy. This is the belief that if something happens more frequently than normal during a given period, it will happen less frequently in the future, or vice versa. It's the idea that the universe has a memory and will balance things out over time. But the truth is, each event is independent, and past events have no bearing on future outcomes. A classic example of the gambler's fallacy is the story of a gambler who lost everything at a roulette table. Let's call him John. John was at a casino, and he noticed that the ball had landed on black several times in a row. He thought, there's no way it can land on black again. It's due to land on red. So he bet a large sum of money on red. The ball landed on black again. John doubled down, thinking, now it has to land on red. Didn't. He kept doubling down, convinced that the streak of black would end. But it didn't. Eventually, John lost everything. The gambler's fallacy can be particularly dangerous because it can lead to irrational decision-making and significant financial losses. It's important to understand that each spin of the roulette wheel is an independent event. The probability of landing on red or black is always 50%, regardless of what happened in the past. To avoid this trap, it's essential to base your decisions on the actual probabilities and not on a false sense of balance or fairness. Now, let's move on to the narrative fallacy. This is the tendency to create a coherent story or explanation for a series of events, even when the events are random or unrelated. We humans are natural storytellers, and we have a strong desire to find patterns and meaning in the world around us. However, this can lead us to see connections where none exist and to create narratives that are more comforting than accurate. I have a personal experience with the narrative fallacy that I'd like to share. A few years ago, I was working on a project that involved analyzing market trends. I noticed that every time a particular news event occurred, the stock price of a certain company would drop. I started to believe that this news event was causing the stock price to fall. I created a narrative in my mind that the news event was a significant factor in the company's performance. However, when I dug deeper, I realized that the correlation was purely coincidental. The stock price was influenced by a variety of factors, and the news event was just one of many. The narrative fallacy is particularly prevalent in marketing. Companies often create compelling stories to sell their products, even when the stories are not entirely accurate. For example, a company might claim that their product is the best because it has been used by famous athletes. While this might be true, it doesn't necessarily mean that the product is the best for everyone. The narrative fallacy can lead consumers to make decisions based on emotional appeal rather than objective facts. To avoid the narrative fallacy, it's important to critically evaluate the evidence and not rely solely on compelling stories. Look for data and objective analysis to support your decisions. Be skeptical of narratives that seem too good to be true or that oversimplify complex issues. Instead, seek out multiple perspectives and consider the broader context. In conclusion, the illusion of control, the gambler's fallacy, and the narrative fallacy are powerful mental traps that can significantly impact our decision-making. By understanding how these traps work and their psychological underpinnings, we can take steps to avoid them. Recognize the limits of your influence, base your decisions on actual probabilities, and critically evaluate the evidence. By doing so, you can make more informed and rational decisions, leading to better outcomes in both your personal and professional life. Section 4. The art of decision-making. Decision-making is a central theme in the art of thinking clearly. It's a process that we engage in every day, from the mundane choices like what to wear or what to eat, to the more significant decisions that can shape the course of our lives. In this section, we'll delve into the intricacies of decision-making, exploring the role of heuristics, the importance of considering multiple perspectives, and the benefits of a structured decision-making framework. We'll also share some practical tips and real-world examples to help you improve your decision-making skills. Let's start with heuristics. Heuristics are mental shortcuts that simplify decision-making. They are like rules of thumb that help us make quick judgments and decisions without having to analyze every detail. For example, when you're driving and you see a red light, you don't need to think through all the possible outcomes of stopping or not stopping. The heuristic red light means stop guides your action almost automatically. Heuristics are incredibly useful because they allow us to make decisions quickly and efficiently, often with good results. However, they can also lead to biases and errors if we're not careful. One of the most common heuristics is the availability heuristic. This is when we make decisions based on the information that comes to mind most easily. For instance, if you hear a lot of news stories about plane crashes, you might overestimate the danger of flying and choose to drive instead, even though statistically flying is much safer. The availability heuristic can be a double-edged sword. It helps us make quick decisions, but it can also lead us to overestimate the likelihood of rare events. Another important heuristic is the representativeness heuristic. This is when we judge the probability of an event based on how similar it is to a prototype or a stereotype. For example, if you meet someone who is quiet and introverted, you might assume they are a librarian or a scientist, even though there are many other professions that fit those traits. The representativeness heuristic can lead to stereotyping and can cause us to overlook important information that doesn't fit our preconceived notions. Now, let's talk about the role of heuristics in emergency response. In high-stress situations, such as a natural disaster or a medical emergency, heuristics can be lifesavers. Emergency responders often have to make split-second decisions with limited information. They rely on heuristics to guide their actions, such as the heuristic triage the most critical patients first. This allows them to prioritize their efforts and save as many lives as possible. However, even in these high-stakes situations, it's important to be aware of the potential biases that heuristics can introduce. For example, a responder might overlook a less obvious but equally critical patient if they are too focused on the most visible injuries. While heuristics are valuable tools, they are not a substitute for careful, deliberate thinking. This is where considering multiple perspectives comes into play. When making important decisions, it's crucial to gather as much information as possible and to consider different viewpoints. This can help you avoid the pitfalls of cognitive biases and make more informed choices. Let me share a story to illustrate this point. A few years ago, I read about a CEO named Sarah who faced a significant decision. Her company was considering a major merger, which could either catapult them to the top of their industry or lead to a catastrophic failure. Sarah knew that the decision was too important to rely solely on her own judgment. She decided to seek out multiple perspectives by forming a task force that included not only her top executives but also employees from different departments and even some external consultants. The task force spent months analyzing the potential benefits and risks of the merger. They considered financial data, market trends, and the cultural fit between the two companies. They also held brainstorming sessions to generate creative solutions and to identify potential pitfalls. By the end of the process, Sarah had a much clearer understanding of the decision at hand. She was able to weigh the pros and cons more objectively and to make a well-informed decision. The merger was ultimately successful, and the company thrived. This story highlights the importance of considering multiple perspectives. When you involve a diverse group of people in your decision-making process, you gain access to a wider range of ideas and insights. This can help you identify blind spots and make more robust decisions. Another key aspect of effective decision-making is the use of a structured framework. A structured decision-making process can help you break down complex decisions into manageable steps, ensuring that you consider all the relevant factors and that you make a deliberate, thoughtful choice. One popular framework is the DECIDE model, which stands for define, evaluate, choose, identify, develop, and execute. Let's break this down. 1. Define the problem. Clearly articulate what the decision is about and what you are trying to achieve. 2. Evaluate the options. Gather information and consider all the possible choices. 3. Choose the best option. Weigh the pros and cons and select the most viable solution. 4. Identify potential obstacles. Anticipate any challenges or risks that might arise. 5. Develop a plan. Create a detailed action plan to implement your decision. 6. Execute the plan. Put your decision into action and monitor the results. A structured framework like this can be particularly useful in business. For example, a company might use the DECIDE model to decide whether to launch a new product. They would start by defining the problem, such as identifying a gap in the market or a need for innovation. They would then evaluate different product ideas, considering factors like market demand, production costs, and potential competition. After choosing the best option, they would identify potential obstacles, such as supply chain issues or regulatory hurdles. They would then develop a detailed launch plan, including marketing strategies and distribution channels. Finally, they would execute the plan and monitor the product's performance, making adjustments as needed. To give you a more personal example, I have a friend named Alex who used a structured decision-making framework to make a life-changing decision. Alex had been working at a corporate job for several years, but was feeling unfulfilled. He wanted to start his own business but was hesitant to take the leap. He decided to use a structured framework to help him make the decision. First, Alex defined the problem. He was unhappy in his current job and wanted to pursue his passion for entrepreneurship. Next, he evaluated his options. He considered the pros and cons of staying at his current job versus starting his own business. He also sought advice from mentors and friends who had started their own businesses. After careful consideration, Alex chose to start his own business. He identified potential obstacles, such as financial risks and the need to build a customer base. He then developed a detailed business plan, including a marketing strategy and a timeline for launching his business. Finally, he executed his plan, quitting his job and dedicating himself to his new venture. Alex's decision was not easy, but using a structured framework helped him make a well-informed choice. Today, his business is thriving, and he is much happier and more fulfilled than he ever was in his corporate job. In conclusion, decision-making is an art that requires a combination of heuristics, multiple perspectives, and structured frameworks. Heuristics can help us make quick decisions, but we need to be aware of their potential biases. Considering multiple perspectives can provide us with a broader range of insights and help us avoid blind spots. And using a structured framework can ensure that we make deliberate, thoughtful choices. By incorporating these elements into your decision-making process, you can improve your ability to make better decisions and achieve your goals. Section 5. Cultivating a clear mind. Cultivating a clear mind is not just a fleeting idea or a passing trend. It's a fundamental practice that can transform your life in profound ways. In this section, we'll explore practical steps you can take to achieve and maintain mental clarity. We'll delve into the importance of mindfulness, the benefits of a clutter-free environment, and the role of continuous learning. Each point will be supported by real-world examples and personal anecdotes to illustrate the practical application of these principles. Let's start with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present and engaged in the moment, without judgment. It's about observing your thoughts and feelings as they are, without getting caught up in them. This might sound simple, but in our fast-paced, distraction-filled world, it can be incredibly challenging. Yet, the benefits of mindfulness are well documented and profound. Imagine a monk sitting in a serene temple, surrounded by the gentle sounds of nature. This monk has dedicated his life to the practice of mindfulness. Every breath, every movement is a conscious act. He doesn't just sit in meditation. He lives in meditation. For him, mindfulness is not a separate activity but a way of life. This monk's mind is clear and focused, free from the clutter of unnecessary thoughts and worries. His clarity of mind allows him to see the world with a fresh perspective, to respond to challenges with calm and wisdom. Now, let's bring this back to the real world. You might not be a monk, but you can still benefit from the practice of mindfulness. One of the most significant benefits of mindfulness is its ability to reduce stress. When you're mindful, you're not dwelling on past regrets or worrying about future uncertainties. You're fully present in the here and now. This can be incredibly liberating. For example, imagine you're stuck in traffic. Instead of getting frustrated and stressed, you can choose to be mindful. Focus on your breath, notice the sensations in your body, and observe your surroundings. You might even find a sense of peace in the midst of chaos. Another practical application of mindfulness is in your daily interactions. When you're fully present with someone, you're not just listening to respond, you're listening to understand. This can lead to deeper, more meaningful connections. For instance, the next time you have a conversation with a friend or family member, try to be fully present. Put away your phone, make eye contact, and really listen. You might be surprised by how much more you can connect with them. Now, let's move on to the importance of a clutter-free environment. Your physical space has a direct impact on your mental state. A cluttered environment can lead to a cluttered mind. Think about it. When your desk is covered in papers and your room is filled with unnecessary items, it can be hard to focus and think clearly. On the other hand, a clean and organized space can help you feel more calm and focused. I have a personal experience that illustrates this point. A few years ago, I was feeling overwhelmed and stressed. My apartment was a mess, with clothes scattered everywhere and papers piled high on my desk. One day, I decided to take action. I spent an entire weekend decluttering. I sorted through everything, donating items I no longer needed and organizing what I kept. The transformation was remarkable. Not only did my apartment look better, but I felt better too. The act of decluttering was like a mental reset. I felt lighter, more focused, and more productive. This isn't just anecdotal. Research has shown that a clutter-free environment can improve productivity and reduce stress. For example, a study by the Princeton University Neuroscience Institute found that physical clutter can compete for your attention, resulting in decreased performance and increased stress. On the other hand, a clean and organized workspace can help you stay focused and get more done. So, if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, try decluttering your space. It might be the mental reset you need. Finally, let's talk about the role of continuous learning in maintaining mental clarity. Learning is not just about acquiring new information. It's about keeping your mind active and engaged. When you're constantly learning, you're challenging your brain and keeping it sharp. This can help you stay mentally agile and adaptable, which is crucial in today's rapidly changing world. One of the best ways to incorporate continuous learning into your life is to make it a habit. Set aside time each day or each week to learn something new. This could be reading a book, taking an online course, or even just exploring a new hobby. For example, I recently started learning a new language. Not only is it fun, but it's also challenging my brain in new ways. I've noticed that I feel more mentally sharp and focused, and I'm better able to tackle other tasks. Continuous learning can also help you stay curious and open-minded. When you're always learning, you're more likely to approach new situations with a sense of wonder and exploration. This can lead to new insights and ideas, which can help you solve problems more creatively. For instance, a friend of mine is a software engineer who started learning about psychology. He found that this knowledge helped him better understand user behavior, which in turn improved the user experience of the products he was developing. In conclusion, cultivating a clear mind is a multifaceted process that involves mindfulness, maintaining a clutter-free environment, and continuous learning. Each of these practices can help you reduce stress, improve focus, and stay mentally agile. By incorporating these principles into your daily life, you can achieve and maintain the mental clarity you need to thrive. So, take a deep breath, declutter your space, and keep learning. Your mind will thank you. So, we've come to the end of our journey through The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? We've explored so many fascinating concepts, from the dangers of overconfidence to the power of second-order thinking. But the most important thing we've learned is that clear thinking isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's essential for navigating life's challenges and making the most of every opportunity. Think about it. Clear thinking can transform your relationships. When you understand the biases that cloud your judgment, you can communicate more effectively, resolve conflicts, and build deeper connections with the people you care about. And it's not just about personal relationships. Clear thinking is the key to achieving your long-term goals. Whether you're starting a business, pursuing a passion, or simply trying to live a more fulfilling life, the ability to think clearly can make all the difference. I remember a few years ago, I was stuck in a rut. I felt like I was making the same mistakes over and over again, and I couldn't figure out why. That's when I started reading books like The Art of Thinking Clearly. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I realized that so many of my problems were the result of cognitive biases and flawed thinking. Once I started applying the principles from the book, things started to change. I became more patient, more understanding, and more effective in everything I did. It was a game changer. But it's not just about individual transformation. Clear thinking can have a ripple effect, touching the lives of those around you. I once heard a story about a small town where the community leaders decided to focus on clear thinking and critical reasoning. They started with workshops and book clubs, and before long, the town was buzzing with new ideas and innovative solutions. People were more engaged, more collaborative, and more resilient. It's a powerful reminder that when we improve our thinking, we can improve the world around us. So what's next? Well, the journey doesn't end here. The principles of clear thinking are something you can apply every day, in every situation. Start by reflecting on the lessons we've covered. Maybe pick one or two that really resonated with you and focus on those. You could also join a book club or find a community of like-minded individuals who are also committed to clear thinking. And if you're hungry for more, there are plenty of other books and resources out there that can help you deepen your understanding. Remember, clear thinking is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And as you grow, you'll inspire others to do the same. So, let's keep this journey going. Let's keep learning, growing, and thinking clearly. As Rolf Dobelli says, the art of thinking clearly is not about being smart. It's about being aware. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to continue your quest for mental clarity. Until next time, keep thinking clearly and making a difference.